Thanks a lot, and thank you everybody for coming today to PremDay, and thank you for inviting Proton to PremDay as well. I'm very thankful that we were given the chance to be part of the group and also to talk to you today. So, as I said, my name is Asier. I'm here from Proton, and I'm working on the hardware team. And today I wanted to talk about factory data. So I don't know how many of you work with factories directly, manufacturing sites and things like that. I don't know if you, okay, awesome. I see some hands. The reason why I wanted to talk about this is because, I think we all have an objective, whether you are a manufacturer or whether it's us buying hardware, is that we want the hardware to arrive to the data center, working, ready to provision and with minimal validation. Okay, I know this is very, very difficult. But just to kind of set the tone a little bit more, so today I'm not going to talk about problems that may happen on transit, when things break or, your custom problems and things like that. So we're going to focus on technical stuff only. And basically, the reason why I wanted to give this talk, okay, is just because we would like to partner with our manufacturers, right? So that we can have an end-to-end solution in validation, where we understand a little bit more about what's happening in factories. And we understand that factories are challenged, and that there are problems sometimes with factory staff. It's difficult to hire people to build servers, to rack servers. It's very difficult to train new people. Every time we introduce a new product, there are new diagrams, new schematics, new whatnot documentation. And sometimes factories are not aware, right? So sometimes they have to pick up some assembly for a particular product. So, having worked with factory managers for a few years, I can understand some of these problems. And I know that they lead to errors. And I thought it would be a good stage here to discuss how can we together with automation and processes help you and help ourselves as well deliver products that are, we have more reliable, say, deliveries of hardware in a way. So, okay, if you have worked in manufacturing, then you're going to say, okay, this is great idea, but our manufacturing line is huge. It goes all the way to Taiwan and then back here, maybe in Europe. So where do you want to help us? And okay, well, our answer really is, at the moment, is very simple. I think we can bring a lot of value on L10, on server integration assembly. And by that I mean, yes, we have a server that is able to boot, so we don't care how your driver manufacturers or your mechanical manufacturers are testing their components. We can intercept you and help you with some of what we need when we are working with a server that is able to boot. And you may say, thank you very much again, I don't really need this, we already do this, we are the experts, and absolutely right, kudos to the manufacturers, they do a great job. But I wanted to highlight some problems that we have, right? So we as buyers, sometimes we see things that we don't exactly know what they mean, particularly if you are in the middle and the bottom end, so if you are not a big customer, say like Facebook or Google, you may see invoices with part numbers that represent test settings that you don't fully understand, that maybe they are encoded in a way that are only meaningful to your factory. I see some raised hands on that. We also don't understand exactly what the assembly fee includes, how many hours, what type of tests. And, sometimes, we are already reporting this to your sales teams, and they know it, but then it becomes very difficult to know what happens. And it's very hard to follow for our engineers, right, to understand what's happening in the factory. So our proposal, we will see it as a win-win. I know it's very challenging. I know there's going to be a lot of pushback, but PremDay is the place where engineers can talk freely. So that's why I'm very thankful for today. So we think this can lead to a faster and more efficient hardware supply, even for smaller companies, right? There is more diversity. Think about it. There are more inputs from more companies. So we have a very diverse range of companies coming today. And your clients won't be dominated by two or big corporations. You will hear from more engineers, right? So we can also help you, fix issues at source, right? So by that we mean, okay, so if we work with you in the factory, you are next to your warehouse, you have all your personnel there to help you repair stuff. We don't need to ship stuff, the repair happens in the factory, so there is less RMAs. We also offer this solution can offer a better inventory management for the factory, right? So say we find a drive that's broken and you ship 1,000 units, you don't need to ship 1,000 units and then get the old units back. Stuff like that becomes much more simple to manage once you are in the factory. And in general, there is less overheads as well for the repairs, right? So you don't need to dispatch engineers to our data centers or use contractors or things like that. And for us, really is about having safer data centers, right? Because when we operate at our scales, we have presence in small rooms. Sometimes, we have to do repairs in those rooms. And who knows, somebody touches a cable, something happens, and it can bring down a rack. So not doing repairs in the data center or less repairs in the data center, because there is always some level of repair, we see it as a win-win for all of us. So with that in mind, I wanted to put forward 4 ideas, 4 proposals, these are based on my own experience. So the first one is test coverage. Okay. So with test coverage, we can provide workloads that represent our production. So we can tell you exactly a simulated workload, and we can direct your testing so that it focuses on features that are more immediate to us. So for example, right, we have introduced a new drive, and we have a workload that for us is pretty much always the same. This workload on the new drive and on the new firmware starts to misbehave. And this usually happens when you have a new firmware for the drive, right? So, if we could test that in factory, I think there we will start seeing the gains of, being next to you. We can catch this problem much earlier. There is no need to ship parts back and forth. And we can update the test suites as well as we go along to kind of match your environment. So production environment in the DC with the factory environment. Now, maybe I'm talking too fast. I don't know if this resonates with everybody, if this rings a bell. The second idea is about the test environment. Okay, I know that a lot of companies do this. So yes, we have validated our hardware with such and such distribution, such and such kernel, and you may say yes, thank you again, but we really tested this, and we say yes, you are right. But we can always help you to set the focus, right? So we can actually narrow it down a little bit and say, hey, we are working with this kernel, we're buying this hardware, and we actually hit this error. Could we just replicate this much earlier in the manufacturing line, so that if something changes, if one of your suppliers changes, we can also pick this up much earlier. So this will be another big win, in my opinion. The third idea is relating to assembly and configuration tests. So we have encountered situations where we have seen problems with cabling or some mainboard jumpers. Usually, this relates back to problems with the staff, maybe they are facing a new product and they don't know how it works exactly. So, they are assembling it and putting it together, and maybe something goes off. So sometimes these things can be detected through reading information from the BIOS or the BMC, or sometimes also things that relate to power settings. So, for us, it would be great if we could together work so that we can write tests that verify that this configuration is not reverted, and that if there is a repair work that has been done, the test would pick these things up. This is something that we have observed with new hardware arriving to our data centers. And it's usually quite costly to open boxes and repair cables. So and the fourth proposal is really about tracking other physical repairs, okay? And this is very intimate to your factories. As you probably are aware, you operate software systems that track all these human interventions. There are things that are not specifically being reported from the server itself. And they can also introduce, they can also help us see the changes have been introduced to other components. So, for example, all right, so to be specific, there is a new mainboard that's been tested in factory, and it has had a lot of repairs, and it has been assembled many times before shipping. So, looking at software data usually help you understand a little bit more about how many times and where specifically in the line it happened. We believe integrating software data in testing, it can help us as well to understand if there was a particular problem, and maybe see if something else has changed, maybe a revision has changed or something that is difficult to detect with firmware settings or firmware registers or things like that. Okay, I think I'm going too fast. I'm looking at the timer there, so I'm going to try to slow down, or maybe we have a bit more time for questions. So now we come to the implementation ideas, which is the last bit that I wanted to talk about today. With implementation ideas, really, what we are proposing is to have some open factory or open computer factory, whatever you want to call it. And we have two ideas for factories, which basically will help us address these problems, and we believe by doing two changes, we will be in a much better place. So the first one is to find a way to report data from the factory back to the customer. And the second one is to help the factory run tests that relate to our environment. That's great. I see some hands up. Thank you. So reporting data, okay? So for us, I think it will be very useful if assembly results and test results and validation results are available prior to shipping. So even before, as the machine is assembled, even before it ships. And for example, things that we could include here are BIOS and BMC settings, the results of testing, or the manufacturing yields as we talk about the software system and things like that. Yeah, I see a lot of hands. Well, a few hands, thank you. And then technical details, how to do this well without being very specific. I know factories have limitations in terms of staff, in terms of IT understanding. Sometimes you use subcontractors for your manufacturing and stuff like that. But if we could get to a point where we have API endpoints, or where we could query and get a full download for all this data set, it will be great. It will really help us. If it's very difficult to host services in factories, we can also have some sort of cloud provider where this data is uploaded regularly. It's even encrypted for the customers, firewalled, whatever security measures we need to implement in order for NDAs to be valid. We believe that this will be very, very, very useful. And then the second part that I wanted to talk about was test execution environments, all right? So this is more to do with defining a standard that will let us as customers run tests. Thank you. And basically, the proposal is to go open source wherever we can, so that we use tools and tests that are easy to serve, where there is no problems with NDAs. Tests have to be time limited because obviously we have shipping constraints. And we could even package the tests and the test suites ourselves, and it could be ready for you just to run. We could work on finding kernel releases that simulate what we are running in our production. So I know that a lot of factories maybe do not operate in Linux, but we really think that there could be a lot of gains from moving some of that manufacturing to a Linux environment, to a Linux Pixie environment, stuff like that. Again, challenging, I know, but this is the stage. And then as part of this open factory standard, we believe that having some sort of open source kind of job description format would really help to in the same way that containers do it nowadays, but much simpler. We will have a way to exchange this information, right, where we specify things like the kernel release, the tool, the parameters that we ran, the amount of time that it took to run, and a way to store the results back so that we could check them. So obviously, these test execution environments need some constraints. So obviously, we want all the tests to complete successfully. We will help you work with that. If one test fails, we think that if the repair has been completed, we will need to retest the machine so that we have completeness and then in the test coverage. And finally, it will be much nicer if we could just query the progress as it happens, right, live from the machine. So I know this is a very hard requirement, but and very hard to implement. But we really think that by working with you, this way we can really add a lot of value and a lot of and reduce a lot of errors. And in summary, so I think this is challenging. Again, I'm not saying it's easy, but it will help you have a more intimate knowledge of us, your customers. So we will share more data with you. You will know what we need and how we need it before even you build it. We can design it. We can design the test suites that will match what we need. And in return, I think this is more of a streamlined procurement process overall. So, faster resolution of these problems, less RMAs, less repair works, less kind of calls to support team, mean more sales. So we will buy more hardware and faster if we have more ways to optimize this flow. So with that, and we have 20 minutes left for questions, I want to thank you all for your time. And I think we already have one question there. Sorry.
Hey, does it work? Yeah. Actually, we wrote at Criteo a tool called Hardware Bench that does kind of a snapshot of the system. It dumps the BIOS, the BMC, or all the things you can think of, the kernel version, whatever. And it's a part of what you're asking for. So it might be a place to start for that.
Okay, yeah, that's good to know. Thank you.
It's open source, it's on GitHub.
Okay, great, awesome.
Hola, Asier, ¿qué tal?
Hola.
So do you think that one of the main issues for this to be implemented is the current market volume that you may have, the market demand for those machines that you're working with?
Not necessarily. I mean, I think that the customer, think about it. So we are all PC enthusiasts, right? And I'm pretty sure you all know about computer stores where you can go and assemble your own PC and test it. And this just happens with computer hardware for home, right? I mean, it's not even server hardware. Server hardware is far more expensive, more sophisticated. I think it's just we have to have a different mindset. I know it's challenging, but I think it's not necessarily about volume. And I think the companies that are here today have nice volumes. It's more about changing the mindset and letting the customer try a little bit more. And it's not even try, it's about efficiency. So we are all gonna make sure that things are moving when they are completed. So it's really helping everybody, you know. Less RMAs, less repairs, inventory stays with you. I don't know. For me, it's a win. Yeah.
This is a good initiative for the open factory. Back to some time ago, I was working for the ODM in Taiwan, and one of the biggest challenging in RMA or DOE, that was taking a lot of time on physical parts to be shipped. So this will be one of the other key that needs to be focused on. So from my 2 cents, it will be great to standardize the format of report from the customer that what kind of symptoms you are seeing and what are the ways that you tried to try to standardize this kind of description would help the ODM OEMs to work on it. And the other thing is we might need to consider the physical goods, the shipping processes and its lead time, because it usually takes like a lot of weeks or months to repair one. And the other thing is that for the manufacturing side, they would always claim that because the RMA thing is too little for comparing with the large scale. So you might need to, many people will need to convince them to use the open factory, and that everybody push them, then it can move to that way.
Oh, yeah. I appreciate it. That's really good to hear. Thank you so much. Yeah, very good feedback.
Hi. Thanks for the talk. Yeah, so I think the volume is one issue here, right? Maybe. And however, there are some test formats kind of saying what Erwan and their colleagues worked on that you can use, right? But they're also, the OCP also has like a test and validation group, for example, right? They're also specifying on how they want to report back test results, right? So not purely in the sense of manufacturing final testing to the customer, but rather than under all the hyperscalers, right? And maybe that's also a point where you can attach to, in terms of if hyperscalers make up 50% of the market, right? And if they use, a certain test format, right? You can probably also attach that as like mid-sized infrastructure companies, so that you are part of a bigger group, let's say, and kind of see if the ODMs are willing to support or adopt these kind of specs, rather than trying to develop your own spec now again, right? So I think trying to see what's there already, and I think that's probably the way you want to go. Is probably helps you to get to the point where you want to go the fastest, right? So
yeah. Have you worked with ODM frameworks before? Do you have any feedback with?
No. I just wanted to bring up the OCP test and validation thing, that they are also developing that, and that's also in the open, right? And that's coming from the hyperscaler.
Oh,
side,
yes, sorry, yes.
Right. So and maybe that's something worth looking into if that also fulfills your needs. And if it is, then maybe ODMs can also report back in this format, right? Because I think one of the problems is really what you said is there are so many different formats out there. Everyone has their own test bag,
Yes.
right? I mean, Criteo developed something for them. So in what format should the ODM report, right? So,
Yes.
And attaching to a bigger group maybe makes sense. All
Yes.
right, just want to bring that up.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So Asier, back to me, OCP here. Let's catch up about the test and validation initiative afterwards.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thank you.
Raise your hand.
We almost.
I was just going to add that PremDay is maybe a good venue to discuss that. You know, for example, what I'm still a bit surprised as a client is when I describe what I want as, you know, initial BIOS configuration, initial BMC configuration, and so on. There's no formalized format for that. It's really I write something on a piece of paper or mail, and I hope that everything goes right, and it often doesn't. So I guess a venue like that, or maybe OCP, I don't know, is a good way for vendors and clients to try to, you know, all get together and discuss a little bit how we could formalize something that makes things a little easier. Probably something that doesn't solve all the problem, but at least, you know, try to address how we describe the initial configuration for BIOS, BMC config, and stuff like that.
Much easier without throwing the microphone, isn't it? Just a remark about those initial BMC configurations. So I'm firmware architect as hardware vendors. There is something contradictory about this demand, is that what we've seen from this talk is more and more our clients want more customization, right? We don't want your own tests right at the factory, which I think is a great initiative, by the way. At the same time, you expect an initial configuration that's easily maintainable by the vendors, but it has to be different for every client. So there are, as the BMC becomes more and more complex, I don't know if you've looked in depth at OpenBMC nowadays, but it's a very, very complex tech stack. It's more and more challenging to talk about settings.
In a case of OpenBMC, for example, we could simply talk about initial image. There are ways to you know, find a solution. Oh, good.
One of the main issue we had when we asked to do some specific bench test or other stuff is the companies are not willing to send their own their representative workload to do the test, and it's
Exactly.
it's one of the most even when you ship the hardware to them, it's hard to have the team provide some specific workload and they're inside, so there is no need to export data outside. And so when you want to communicate them to a third party, it's very hard. So we should maybe have some standard tools or representative workload with, like let's say media entertainment, FSI, or latency, or stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Me again. Just one thing. Please state your company before you intervene. It's better for anyone to know who's talking. Just one thing about that. The only way we found Criteo, yes. So, okay. The only way we found around that was to provide benchmark proxies, which are mostly micro benchmarks, a set of micro benchmarks that are relevant to the workload we're running, and that's the best we could find. That's actually how we did, and it actually works pretty well for us. Maybe it's a start.
I can also add that usually at the factory we're trying to find out if the machine is sane. We're not trying to find out the perfect tuning or whatever. We'll do it downstream. We're just trying to ensure that everything is working properly, and then it should be okay.
I'm from Criteo too. Your talk was about customers providing like some kind of testing image to the vendors to run on the factories to detect faulty components or such directly at the factory. But with a correct standard and definitions, it could be both ways. like the vendors
Yes.
could provide a testing image that you could run
Yes.
on your servers with problems, and that could even automatically report what is failing and what needs replacement.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And you always get to that point after you open a ticket, right, with a vendor, and then they send you an image on Dropbox or something. And it is useful, but I also would like to get earlier in the, I don't want the hardware if the test not passing. I just don't. It gets, we're a small company. We need to kind of optimize, you know. I think this is the other side of the problem, that big companies have a lot of stuff, but small companies have, it will buy more if there was more resolution in factory, in my opinion.
And thank you all. I think this is what we are expecting with PremDay, having discussions and interaction. So this is very nice to see people exchanging, having different point of views, and maybe starting new projects. So thank you all for participating. Thank you, Asier, for your talk.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Let's continue.